especially when it comes to enacting plans. I'd much rather act under my own steam than follow someone else's lead. I'm only flexible with the personal, not the business aspect of life. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Death by Pony. Today we're hopping back into our life. So without further ado, let's hop in. Alright. What are we gonna do today? How about sightseeing? You're perched on the couch of your living room doing nothing in particular. It was a quintessential summer afternoon, the weather was warm, and the mood was lazy. So far, it had shaped up to be a pleasant day, if somewhat uneventful, no plans and no obligations beyond a few usual chores. Liz had already flitted off enjoying herself. She left in the morning carrying a mysteriously heavy bag. You hadn't bothered asking her what she was doing or why it needed a sack that clattered when it moved. She probably wouldn't be home till late. Your moms both had the day off and, like you, had been using their freedom to do nothing of importance. The group of you finished cleaning up from your shared lunch and Mom struck up a conversation.
So,
well, what's next? Your mind was blank. You let the question hang, unassuming Ma would be the one to reply. You glanced down at your phone out of habit. And right then the screen lit up, presenting you with a potential idea. A text notification had come in. Baxter's name displayed itself. He sent more messages after the first. You unliked your phone to see it all. Hello and good afternoon. I am intending to go sightseeing and would love if you could join me. You're quite welcome to invite anyone else along as well. Your phone buzzed one more time with an additional note. Sincerely, your friend Baxter. He snorted at the screen. His texting style read more like a formal letter than with a quill, written with a quill and pen.
Oh?
Did your friend text you? Ma smiled with a raised eyebrow. Gluing your face to your phone for so long must have been a big tip-off. One friend did. Baxter wants to go sightseeing today. Well, perfect timing. Yes, that's nice. Baxter Ward seems like a lovely young man.
Not bad.
He's a step up or two from the Donnells, that's for sure. Neither Mom nor Ma had spent a lot of time around Baxter as far as you were aware. They'd met earlier in the summer, something unavoidable on this street, and had a few encounters since. I wonder where he's from. Ma didn't look to you for an answer, or her wife. She couldn't add to the topic and assumed no one else in the room knew either. It was a wonderment for the universe alone. Mom still pressed her lips together and thought. No clue. I'm curious about is what he's studying in college. He's on break from school, isn't he?
Well...
Yeah, he did mention he was on an off semester, but not more than that. Once the curiosity train left the station, there was no stopping it. The two traded questions back and forth, whispering with growing steam. There was someone on their street who was a stranger, a situation that hadn't occurred in a decade. What do you think his family is like? He's here all by himself. And it fully sunk in that the assumption that you couldn't answer their questions was true. Despite how often you'd seen the new neighbor lately, he was still a foundation of secrets. Baxter had not been forthcoming with basic details, and it never seemed like a good idea to play 20 questions. You found his mystery intriguing. It felt kind of weird to know so little. You wanted to change that? It wasn't a big deal. I want to change that. There was only one thing to do about Baxter's mystery. Confront it directly. If he wouldn't lay it out on his own, you'd have to draw the answers from him. You were focused on your phone. In the formal message that had yet to get a reply. You answered the question casually. You called it out hilariously. You answered him in a similar fashion. I feel like that feels right. Feeling inspired by his stiff texting tone, you couldn't resist having a little bit of fun. Good tidings, Sir Baxter. Of course, I would be delighted to join you on this fine day. I finished my luncheon, so we'll venture forth to your dwellings. You hit send, aware that the message wasn't exactly high society Victorian letter, and a more medieval fantasy scroll, but he probably got the joke. It didn't take long at all for Baxter to continue the conversation. Brave knight, James, that is heartening. I shall see you post-haste. My highest regards. Yeah, you got it. You smiled and turned to your mothers. They had moved on towards wondering about if Baxter had a part-time job. Probably not, both of them were concluding. Gotta go, I'm heading to Baxter's. Have fun, kiddo. Yes, do that. Ma's grin was sweet as honey being used in a trap. You could see the ulterior motives from a mile away.
Please?
If you have to find out anything about our new neighbor, maybe think of telling your poor moms when you get back.
Lonnie.
Lonnie. Despite everything, Mom appeared amused at her wife's blatant attempts at info digging. Well, I'd be interested in hearing it too if Baxter doesn't mind his mystification being cleared up. You two are so nosy, you laugh. You two are so nosy. Why don't you just invite him over and interrogate him yourself? Why do you think Baxter will tell me anything? You let a long-suffering groan over their behavior. You smiled at your hilarious parents. Both Ma and Mom beamed back at you. It was one lucky break that your moms were so fun and lively. Despite the occasional trouble their antics could bring, you wouldn't want them any other way. But it is a shame that he hasn't actually moved into the neighborhood. I could invite him over and get to know him a bit better myself. Sadly, that's not the case.
That's a shame.
He's a young man trying to enjoy his vacation. He should be out and about, not spending his limited time entertaining us old moms in our kitchen. Ma slumped her shoulders while expressing her limitus in this snooping matter, though she immediately perked back up. It's different if he's making a friend of his own age. If you don't want to ask or it doesn't come up, of course, that's fine. I'm only saying that if you do or it does, that I'd be curious to hear about it. Alright, I'll see how it goes. Accept this mission, I won't let you down. If Baxter has an interesting taste, maybe he's into moms. I'll never squeal. I will take those secrets to my grave, you not understanding. You shrugged non-committally. Mom choked and laughed. They're uproarious while Ma frowned, not able to appreciate the humor of the insinuation. You joined in with Mom's laughter and Ma let it slide with a sigh. She did want your help after all. I won't keep you any longer. Go have a wonderful day.
See you later.
Take care. Bye, you have fun too. Maybe we can find other secrets to dig into. You gathered up your phone, wallet, water bottle, and a few other odd ends you imagined might come in handy during your unspecified outing. You left the condo your formerly normal but boring day, rocketed off into the unknown direction. Baxter tended to have that kind of effect on things. Once outside, you crossed the streets diagonally to reach Baxter's place. You found the doorbell and pressed it down. His doorbell was much more reasonably placed. A second later, the man you wanted to see opened the door with a grin. From his quick response, you knew that he'd have been standing by. You'd announced that you'd be there, and he was ready for it.
Hello.
Hello, James. Thank you for coming. Hey, Baxter. Thanks for having me. At Baxter's obvious pleasure at your attention, you smiled. In return, he stepped out of his condo and closed the door behind him to stand by you. I appreciate you agreeing so last minute. However, if you do have prior arrangements, this can be done on another day. Sightseeing is my usual itinerary after all. I didn't have any plans, really. There was nothing to do.
Oh?
On that case, I'm glad today was the afternoon I asked. I've stopped in at least one scenic spot, tried a new restaurant, or browsed an unfamiliar shop nearly every day since I've been here so far. Whenever you, Terry, and Miranda aren't available, that is what I busy myself with. You notice Cove's absent from the list, though Baxter wouldn't dream of doing that to be petty. It was more like extending the polite distance he gave Cove. Cove would be uncomfortable at being counted amongst his potential companions without permission. Whoa, that's impressive. Thank you. I've only had a few short visits to California in my life. Even then, I was underage and supervised by my parents or guardians. He raised an eyebrow and his voice took on a delighted tone. We saw each other one of those rare occasions where I was in-state. Dance instructions were controlling the schedule at that time.
Is that fine?
That summer is my first chance to truly experience what there has for myself. It's also not going to last forever, so I'd rather not waste my opportunities. His bold proclamation reminded you of how fleeting his presence really was in everybody's life. Exactly as he suddenly appeared, it wouldn't be too much longer until he vanished back to wherever he'd come from. He was impossible to pin down. I'll have to warn you, my moms might grill you on your life one of these days, so completely unrelated. But do personal questions bother you? Oh, so elusive. I'm not wasting my chances to spend the day with you. Are you trying to be serious? You didn't comment. Let's ask him. He tilted his head, stumped by the apparent sequencer And you didn't clarify the originator of the topic. You didn't need to call your moms out like that.
I can do that.
Not at all. I'm sorry if I gave that impression. Was there something you wanted to ask me? He locked his door smoothly and tucked his key into his pocket. You are doing me quite the favor by accompanying me. He faced you again with a playfulness that was characteristic for him. I would be happy to tell you whatever you want to know about me.
My pleasure.
Please query me at your leisure. If there's anything you'd ever want to ask, I'm an open book in your hands. It couldn't be stopped there, and you would have expected it to end in a formal bow, but the exceedingly official-sounding offer was flipped into something coy and blissfully possibility. There are many things I would like to know about you. Thank you. I want to know you better as well. You can ask me whatever you want to. He simply nodded and nervously looked away. Your mom would have been thrilled to hear that. He asked me whatever you want to.
Thank you.
That's a gracious offer. I'll take you up on it. His voice, no questions yet, but you knew with his grin that it'd only be a matter of his patience. Instead of asking him personal information, you needed to use your questions asking authority for something else first. Where you think of going sightseeing? Baxter placed his hand on his chin, considering. Ideally, the first stop would be your choice since you're so considerate joining me today. I may as well take advantage of your local expertise. After that, I can take you to a place that possibly even you hadn't been to yet.
What do you think?
Does that sound agreeable? Letting you pick the first place and then following it up with somewhere you hadn't been before despite living here for most of your whole life? What did he think you'd miss? Maybe it was the overconfidence of a tourist, or maybe he was something of a trickster. But he caught you off guard again. With Baxter's promise to tell you whatever you wanted to know, you hadn't prepared for him to still be so hard to read. You should have known he wouldn't suddenly get actually straightforward, no matter how direct his claim he would act. That'll be great. You'd rather have some sway instead of Baxter playing tour guide all day. Baxter flashed his shiny white teeth. Do you have anywhere in mind then? You pondered the request. If there was one place someone like Baxter should go see, what would it be? Baxter's car kept your options wide open. You didn't necessarily have to pick somewhere close by, and yet, inspiration struck. There was no place more iconic around. I have an idea. Have you gone down to the shopping street yet? The shopping street? Cove mentioned that, I believe, but I don't know what it means. Given it was minutes away on foot, you worried you might have offered old news, but it didn't come up on the map as anything other than a few of the permanent shops. You had to be there to know. It's a row of local shops and stalls by the beach. It's right near our neighborhood. Really? His hanging attention encouraged you to continue. It's meant to be fun for visitors, not all the typical grocery stores or clothing shops or things like that. Everyone should go there at least once while they're here. Baxter made a grand gesture of waving you on to lead out. That sounds absolutely perfect. Please show me the way. You obliged, and two of you strolled down the inclined street. Neither of you were particularly rushing. It still took less than 15 minutes to walk down to the spot. You skipped over the cement curve onto a worn gray brick road where they were. Tantalizing smells and mix of attention-grabbing music drifted from the new open doors and outdoor stalls. The different songs blended into a new tune, a celebration for your senses. As normal for tourist season, the path bustled with a crowd of excited visitors. Aesthetically, Baxter stood out from the vast majority of the colorful tourists, but his enthusiasm matched their faces of awe.
I love it.
This is wonderful. Confident you had suggested the correct choice, you let out a happy sigh. You continued wandering, but now you let Baxter direct the way. You merely followed along as he explored. He flitted to and from stalls like Monochrome Butterfly and a flower garden. Terry had been more correct than she could have known when she made that comparison at the beginning of summer. While you had memories attached to each corner of the street, watching his first experience there was almost like seeing it with fresh eyes yourself. You scrutinized the available stalls today and realized Baxter would have huge gaping holes in the experience. There was no magician performing tricks anywhere. That bit of shopping street wonder would go unknown to Baxter, even though he came all the way here. By chance, Baxter led you to the area where shows happened in the past. Cards and coins that appeared out of nowhere, and free balloons were inseparable from this place to you. Watching Baxter out of the corner of your eye, it struck you that you had never gotten close to a tourist before. Everyone you knew well also was familiar with Sunset Board, or at least something in the area, but he was another one of the temporary passers-by. Hey, sometimes people do performances here. If only we came a different day, we could have gotten dolphin balloons. Too bad that he might actually never get a chance to see. Let's tell him. Oh, yeah, the most famous to me anyway, was a magician called the Amazing Alexander. The Amazing Alexander? That sounds amazing. The sheer amount of thrill in Baxter made you happy. He had taste. Though his electric insist was honestly more than what you expected from hearing about some random street magician. But it was nice, so you continued. You explained about how when you were younger and you and a friend had thought about doing your own show too. Derek and you had been enthusiastic but never could figure out what to actually perform. Never ended up happening. Wait, you've actually met him before? You still remember Derek, right? The one you met at the Cypress? Of course, your green-eye bow-tied boy. Right. Baxter listened with amusement as you expanded the story. You were surprised that you could recall it as well as you did all these years later. It returned to your mind in waves. It was nice that Baxter was enjoying himself without seeing the show. Coming here was more than just showing a small part of the world you lived in. You had shown him parts of yourself. Now felt appropriate to use your privilege of asking him a question about himself. Where are you from? I was wondering, what's your family like? What are you studying in college? So what's with the black and white thing? You're single, right? You stay quiet for a bit. I wonder what he's studying. The pragmatic choice. I like it. I'm studying for a business administration and management degree, and the expectation is that I will manage and / administrate at some company in the future. He tilted his head in awe of the silly way he put it. Nothing too specific, I'm afraid. That sounds cool, though. Wow, I never would have guessed. Study's going well. Management, huh? Do you enjoy it, then? Well, we'll prod a little more. I'd say so, yes. I think it plays to my strengths and interests rather well. It might not surprise you to know that I can be a touch particular. I know the importance of coherence and the individuals acting in a well-coordinated fashion. I like things to function well for systems to cooperate smoothly.
Honestly.
I confess you could call me controlling at times, not with people, but with processes. Especially when it comes to enacting plans. I'd much rather act under my own steam than follow someone else's lead. I'm only flexible with the personal, not the business aspect of life. He spread his palms matter-of-factly. But that's enough about my aspirations. You know my story, so what about you, James? I'm curious to know what the world has in store for you further down the line. I'll have you know that you are looking at the full-fledged high school graduate.
Really?
Oh, really? My congratulations. It is an achievement to be proud of. If it's not too much to ask, where do you see yourself next? College? Straight into a career, perhaps? Let's tell him. I don't mind. You had no problems discussing your plans with others in the past. There wasn't a reason that Baxter should be any different. At your reply, Baxter moves in slightly, his eyes sparkling since you'd responded positively. He had no qualms about letting his curiosity show. Like you, I'd been planning to study full-time at a public university. Baxter timidly waited for you to finish and then nodded encouragingly. I think it's wonderful that you have something you're aspiring to already. I wish you the best of luck. And it's an exciting thing taking the first step on your journey.
You know.
You truly never know where you'll end up. Take me, for instance. I had never lived outside of my hometown until I left for college. And look at me now. All of a sudden, I'm in California, of all places, cavorting about with a charming new friend. His brown eyes met yours briefly. Isn't that delightful? Life is nothing if not full of unexpected developments. I'd like to think that we're doing what we can to make the most of that. I didn't have to be here, and you could have pretended no one new had appeared in your small town and gone on as usual. Think that's kind of you say. Sometimes I wish I had your confidence. Looking forward to seeing what comes next. You sigh over thoughts of your future. Excited.
Glad to hear it.
I'm glad to hear it. I feel the same about finding out where things go from here and now. Besides, we've only been talking about work and school and such. There's so much more to life than that. The world would be altogether too dull otherwise. That made sense. Baxter had far more going on than just college. You mean like dancing? He nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. A worthwhile pursuit that brings me a great deal of satisfaction. It's important to have genuine passion, don't you think? He was right. You had your own volunteer work, for example. He was right. You had your pastimes you loved. Volunteer work. I've got a pretty fulfilling hobby too, actually.
Oh?
Yeah, I volunteer with a group called Orca. It's an organization that looks after local environment. We focus on making sure that beaches are clean and that the public is kept up to speed on the latest conservatory efforts, stuff like that. Baxter's eyes went wide as he spoke, in a look of genuine surprise, a thought of something about this fact was personally relevant of some sort. You really mean it? You're a volunteer? He was clearly pumped at what you were saying. It felt good to have him showing such an interest, honestly. You nodded enthusiastically in confirmation. He fixed you with a blank stare. Oh, somehow, against all odds, you'd managed to render Baxter Ward totally speechless. Then, like coming to the dawn of the ocean, a dazzling smile broke across his face. He rocked back on the balls of his feet, in what you could only describe as miniature swoon. That's truly marvelous. I must confess, the view I have of the world can be jaded sometimes. Volunteering to my eyes was one of the wonderful things,
to be honest,
that nobody did unless they were compelled to somehow, either by the will of a parent or guardian at school, applications board, or judicial process. It's so unusual to meet someone doing it because they personally wanted to. Yet here you are, and you said you find it rewarding? You nodded again.
You're incredible.
Incredible, just incredible. He slipped his hand into the pockets of his jeans and looked off to the side. He laughed quietly to himself. I'm in more trouble than I already thought. Oh no, what did we do to poor Baxter? I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to hit like. That way I know you're enjoying the videos I'm making. Remember to subscribe. That way YouTube brings you back here to see what's next. I won't take up any more of your time. Have a good day, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.